I went on Twitter and Facebook and asked you guys the question, what do you think hinders the success slash the quality of a video game? And I said I was gonna feature some of you guys on here, so let's just do that right now. A lot of you did have some really cool things to say, and actually a lot of things that I already said. So Josh Carter says fan bases that can hinder the creative process and reputation of a game when they are not catered to. Let's say a developer puts out a game in a series, so meaning there's already a fan base. Let's say they put out a game and it doesn't appeal to some of those fan base, some of those people. It doesn't meet a lot of their expectations. They will say, no, that game sucked. It sucked, don't buy it. Are they judging the content as its own? Are they judging the content as a game itself, or are they judging it too personally? Are they placing their expectations personally onto that game, and because it doesn't meet their expectations, they are condemning the game? Adam Wolski says, when you make a game for everyone, you make a game for no one. That goes directly with what I was saying in the beginning about making a game, trying to appeal to a wide audience, a wider set of gamers, when they're all different, when a lot of them are different. If you want to appeal to those casual gamers, you're not going to do it by making this big first-person shooter game. Even if you do make it easier for those casual gamers, they're probably casual gamers because they want it accessible. They play on their iPhone. Bitscree says, publishers' unrealistic expectations for sales. Case in point, Tomb Raider and Hitman, deemed failures despite millions in sales. That's a pretty good point. And not just publishers, but I think people that reviewers. Especially if you're in a position where, let's say, IGN, Game Informer, like in a position where a lot of people read your reviews and they actually take them seriously. Publishers, their unrealistic expectations. I don't think publishers will directly say this Hitman was a failure. Of course not. So it would be deemed as a failure to them, but the game will still be sold. You know what I mean? Because if publishers straight up said this on their website, you know what, guys, Hitman was a failure, forget it, don't even buy it, they would never say that. So people will continue buying this. It's sad that these publishers have these unrealistic expectations, but I think the bigger issue are gamer reviewers, like gaming reviewers, because those are the ones that the gamers are going and hearing. They're the ones that are actually telling you their opinion. They're the ones that are saying, you know what, you guys should go play this game, or you guys shouldn't go play this game. For this next one, I'm really happy that this person responded, and the reason why is because this person is actually a developer. This person works for Lionhead Studios. I met him at E3. I talked to him regarding the Fable anniversary. His name is Craig Oman, and he's a really nice guy. So he responded. And if you're watching this, thank you so much, because I love having the opinion of a developer on here. That's perfect. So Craig says, that's a good question, but with multiple answers: marketing, PR, review scores, community, deadlines, tutorials, UI, which means user interface, and so on. I think I hit upon all of those points. He also mentions review scores. So review scores are huge, which is a shame when there are a lot of people out there that review games and don't know how to. A lot of times you have to put your bias aside. A lot of times you have to make sure that you're judging that game honestly, and you are really putting everything into consideration. And you're not just like, oh, that game sucked, it was not fun, I didn't think it was fun. It was like so not fun. You guys should not play it at all because I didn't think it was fun. I think reviewers that have like a somewhat of a of an audience should try to pinpoint the good and the bad. If there's no bad, try to make sure that you explain why. Try to make sure why you like things so that people can not only judge what you're saying, but also have in mind your type of gaming, your type of likes, dislikes, your type of everything. You want to make that clear, because if you don't, then people are going to judge it in a general type of like a general statement where they're like, oh, that then I wouldn't like it either. Make it clear where you're like, well, if you guys really like strategy games, or if you guys really like RPG games, or if you guys don't like RPG games, you might not like this game, you know? A lot of times in making of a game, you don't really include the gamers when they actually have a huge hand in what happens to that game. Bad reviewers giving it bad scores and people actually seeing this, you are doing that game such a disservice, and it's just a shame. But of course, if the game sucks, if the game is horrible, then yeah. If you guys have your reviewer that you guys love, where you're just like, you know what, I go to this person for all the games. I like to go to Angry Joe. I think he has great reviews. They're funny, they're entertaining, but he's brutally honest. And that's what I like about him. If he likes something about a game, he'll say it. If he doesn't like something about a game, he'll say it, and he'll say why. Which is a huge point, is why? Why didn't you like it? Because as soon as you start explaining why, sometimes people will go, oh, that doesn't bother me. I probably would like it. Because if you don't explain why, then people are like, oh, I guess it really did suck. You got to explain it, because there are different types of gamers out there. There are different types of people with different types of likes and dislikes. They always have to have in mind that you are doing this game some kind of service, because you have an audience that is looking to you whether they should buy that game or not. If you have a sense of respect for the industry, then you should be a pretty good reviewer. This covers a lot of it. The major ones, review scores, the community, deadlines, the tutorials. I hadn't mentioned that. That's a good one too. UI, and a lot of these that he's mentioning really do involve the developer and the gamer. I think the success of a video game is a partnership between the developers and the gamers, and that's one of the things that I love so much about the gaming industry, is how tied the gamers are to the video games. Anthony Thompson says, too much emphasis on DLC. There it is. Leaving endings / parts of a game out to make us pay later, as well as inadequate bug testing. That's a big one. You don't see too much of, especially when it comes to the endings. I don't want to get into that, but when it comes to DLC, you do see a lot of that, and I don't think that's going anywhere. I think that's just becoming a part of gaming. I think it sucks when DLC is expensive and it's actually something that you should play. Like, there's like, well, if you guys want to play the next game, you guys should really play the DLC. This is like very story driven. It's like huge. That sucks when it's like, I have to buy it. If it's usually, I've always said that if that's the case, if it's like some kind of like multiplayer pack, some kind of like freaking weapons pack, like armor thing, whatever, they could, whatever. If people want to buy it, they could buy it. It's optional. If you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. But when it has to do with the story, you want to try it. At least if you're going to do it a DLC, at least try to make it as cheap as possible, because that way you are keeping everybody in mind. Because if it's such a big deal, that DLC, then especially if it's like a short DLC, make it affordable. You know, make it affordable so that people could save up for it quickly, or they could really get their money's worth out of it. Especially the inadequate bug testing. I think that's a bigger issue nowadays, because like I said, the DLC and the endings, you hardly see that. You see that every now and then, but usually DLC has to do with side stories and stuff like that. But inadequate bug testing, huge. Al J. Fletcher says, publishers cracking the whip at devs and hanging over them, sucking out any creativity if it interferes with making a fast buck. That's what I was talking about. Publishers hanging over developers' shoulders, being like, "You gotta reach the time, man. That's your damn time, fo, and it's coming up. So you better like hurry the hell up." And he also adds, "Not enough junk food, illicit sex, drugs, and booze for the devs can affect their happiness at work. Give them a break." I think I just heard devs cheering somewhere. Super Elusive Man says, "The economy for one. Times get bad, forcing people to buy less video games, and a developer has to let game writers, designers, etc. go." That's a shame when that happens, because it is true. The economy is not great right now, and a lot of people have to hold back. I mean, especially when it comes to video games. What are you gonna buy if you're limited in your household? What are you gonna buy? A video game or food? So video games usually take the downpour, and then developers, they break THQ, or developers have to start letting some of the dev team go, and that's sad. I hate that. I hate when that happens, because it's just people losing their jobs, especially if they love their job. I mean, to be in the developing industry, if I that's like my dream job. If I ever lost my job because of that, because of the economy, we're like, you know what, we can't pay you anymore, I would be heartbroken. Alex the Hunted says, "Trying to make a quick cash game that is just following successful games instead of trying to make a new IP." Now, it doesn't apply to all series, of course, but I think it is somewhat of a problem. I can't find the tweet now, but he had also added that this is what happened in the video game crash of 1977, I believe. And I didn't know about that. I checked it up, and it had to do with a crash that the industry had gone in during that time with Pong. Because Pong was releasing, I think they were calling it clones, like releasing game after game after game, and it started to crash. So that's why he was saying that these repeated games are not good, because they have led to crashes in the industry in the past. As much as that is a problem, I think the industry is so evolved nowadays that I think it would be very hard for the industry to crash because of that reason. Back then it was easier because gaming wasn't as big. I mean, it was, but there weren't that many options. So it was like, how about another Pong game? So I think it was easier for that to happen back then than it is now. But it is something that people should be careful. Developers should be careful with. Sega Studios says, "If it has glitches, bad story, bad management, deadlines, if they even care about quality over quantity." Bad story is the most obvious one. I don't think I mentioned that one, but bad story is obvious. I mean, come on, developers. Do you really think that a bad story is gonna sell? This has been like a huge debate between gamers always. Gameplay versus story. Which is more important? Good gameplay or good story? And some people say if you have bad gameplay, it doesn't matter if you have a good story, the game's not gonna do good. Or you have people that say, no, if you've got a good story and a somewhat good gameplay, it should always do good. But I think there's a middle line. I don't, like I've said in the past, I don't like the extremes. I think there's a fine line between both of them. I think there should be a fine line between both of them. You want to always have a good enough gameplay that people could adjust to, where it's like, this isn't bad. It doesn't have to be amazing, but it's like, I could do this. And a good story. If you have a horrible story, it doesn't matter how good the gameplay is, you're not going to play it, trust me. At least have an interesting story. So I think there has to be a middle ground when it comes to that, but that's a good point. Scottish Warrior 92 says publishers and focus groups games. So kind of like what I was saying, where a game is trying to appeal to a wide audience. I really like how he says this next part. Making a game for an audience instead of letting them find an audience. Best scenario is that they created a really good game with a great story, awesome gameplay. It's like, this is perfect. So why limit yourself? Why limit yourself by saying, you know what, let's take this out. It's probably too hard for casual gamers. Let's just take that out so that casual gamers will play it. But what about those gamers that game is meant for? Let's say a console game. Like I had said before, you put in things for casual gamers, making it easy. You're kind of dumbing it down because casual gamers really wouldn't have played those types of games because they don't know how to use the controller. But for the actual audience that is going to play the game, actual audience that actually has consoles, opposed to a casual gamer that probably doesn't even have a console, only uses iOS, you're dumbing this game down when the casual gamers are probably not even going to play it. But with the gamers that are going to play it, it's a dumbed down game. So it's better to make a game and let it find its audience. Like he said, if you've got a good IP, if you put all your dedication in that game, you will find an audience. Trust me. And now, if that game sucks, I'm so sorry. Steven says, player expectations and industry safe bet policies. If that game didn't reach your expectations, okay, it didn't. But does that make it bad? Call of Duty, I don't like Call of Duty. But what about all those other people that love Call of Duty? Does that make them morons? Because they think it's good? Of course not. Those people probably think that RPGs suck. And that's understandable. I was like, okay, yeah. Because you don't like that type of game. Your expectations are different. But you got to remember that. And you got to remember that that's not your judgment. Your judgment towards that game should be, was the gameplay easy to get into? Was I intrigued enough? Was it suspenseful enough? You know what I mean? Like, you got to try to think like the person that game was made for. If you go into that game thinking like you, and like me, like if I played Call of Duty and I went into there expecting an RPG, I'm like, that game sucked. Like, majorly. Of course, because it wasn't an RPG. Let me go to Facebook, because a lot of you guys in Facebook were saying like bigger things, and I found some of them pretty interesting. So Alex Castillo says, I think not marketing a game effectively can really hinder the success of a video game. For example, if you only show pre-rendered cutscenes and live action trailers promoting the game but not actual gameplay, it may be confusing to the consumer since they're not seeing actual game footage. The savvy gamer will logically wonder about what you can actually do in the game and what is just fabricated or exaggerated. Mechanics shown for the sake of a cooler looking trailer, meant to hype up the game rather than showcase actual gameplay. Compare the trailers for The Force Unleashed 2 to the actual game, for example. But on the other hand, less savvy gamers may fall for these tricks and then be horribly let down once they play the actual game. So depending on word of mouth and reviews, not marketing a game effectively or truthfully could either hurt or help sales, even if the quality suffers. I think the way to go when it comes to marketing a game is teasers are okay to do pure cinematics, especially early on, because sometimes you don't have the gameplay to show early on. So teasers are good for cinematics. Hype them up, like, oh dude, this looks so good. And then trailers, you want to try to show some gameplay. Once you have enough to show where you're like, this is a trailer, you want to at least show a mix. Every developer should always show gameplay, in-game scenes, because you need to give the players some kind of a heads up of what they're in for. Like, let them know if this game is going to be strategy, if it's going to be like bird's eye view, you want to let the player know that. Because trust me, I'm not a big fan of bird's eye view, like strategy games. I'm not that good at them. And let's say for Diablo 3. That game has amazing cinematics. Let's say they were just showing me cinematics and they never showed me any of the gameplay. I would be like, dude, this game looks amazing. I would buy it and then you're like, oh my god, this is a strategy game. It's like top down. I would be pissed. That would be false advertisement. That's wrong, and it shouldn't be done. So you should always show your gameplay so that you could give your gamers a good idea of what the game looks like, of how the game flows, of the type of game style. Because like I said, there are all types of gamers out there. If you're proud of your game, you should have nothing to hide. Ricky Marsden says, I feel like video games fail to be of high quality when they fall back on tired tropes and cliches and try to create something exclusively for the young male demographic. Being a young male myself, I not only find the typecasting of my age offensive, but it has also furthered the stereotype of the gaming community being made up entirely of immature and unintelligent teenagers. The gaming community needs to acknowledge that not everybody is the same and at least make an effort to cater towards a broader audience. Shouldn't do what I was saying, like appeal to a wider audience, because you're thinking of everybody as the same. It's like, oh, they're all gamers. We're all different. So yeah, I think that's what this person is saying, that stereotypes can hinder the success and the quality of the gaming industry, not just games themselves, but the gaming industry. I totally agree with that. Dylan David Davies says, this is a big one, but I think it was pretty interesting because I kind of agree with this. I kind of find myself doing the same thing. But this is more on a personal level, so that's why I'm going to include it, because this is more of a personal type of what makes a game successful on a personal level. For me personally, atmosphere and setting are above all the most important factors when it comes to whether or not I will like a game. Atmosphere heavily relies on good pacing, foreshadowing, music, lighting, climate, weather, and build-up. A video game does not need to have a particularly good story to have a good atmosphere. For example, Persona 4, Fear, Metro 2033, Mass Effect 1 and 2, Fable, Gears of War, just to name a few. I kind of disagree that some of those don't have a great story, because I think some of those do have good story and atmosphere, but I see what he means. But he does say a note. He says, note, this isn't the case the entire time. I'm just focusing on one kind of marketing campaign that always works for me, where another kind of commercial, such as comedy, is far too subjective. He goes on saying, whether or not a game will entice me to purchase it is entirely based on the marketing power behind the game. There it is again, marketing. Good marketing is key to a game's success. A commercial or advert should focus on establishing the game's atmosphere and setting in a very short amount of time, or in some cases, even create its own in the form of a short story. Whether or not you personally care for atmosphere and setting, you will always feel it and maybe not even notice it. Uniqueness is what a marketing campaign should always focus on, and uniqueness heavily relies on the participation of the viewer. Their emotions and thoughts about the product must be unique, thus making it memorable. Successful marketing campaigns that have done exactly that would be Dead Island, the Halo series, Believe and Birth of a Spartan in particular, BioShock, and Gears of War 1. The feeling, that atmosphere, I think Gears of War has done such a great job at marketing their games. Now, Gears of War isn't like the best series ever. I love Gears of War, but it's not like, oh my god, they're the best games ever in the whole freaking world. No, they're not. But they have such great marketing. They have such great trailers. The Gears of War trailers are so good. Gears of War 1 trailer, Mad World, is like one of my favorite trailers ever for a game. That trailer did exactly what he's talking about. It gave you the feeling of it. It gave you the atmosphere. It made you feel what the threat was. It made you feel that emotion. It made you feel that sense of like turmoil inside, more inside you than around you. All you needed was Marcus. That's it. You didn't need to see anybody else. BioShock is huge on that. It's all about the atmosphere with BioShock. But it also has a lot to do with the story. The success of BioShock is not only the atmosphere, but its story as well. Fable definitely. Fable has that atmosphere. You just feel it. I love all of Fable's trailers. And I think a big thing that it adds to the atmosphere is its music. It has this trademark music, Fable. And so does Gears of War. And so does Mass Effect. They all have their trademarks. And I think that's a good thing. Because if it doesn't have that, where you're just like, oh, this looks like so-and-so game, that's usually not a good sign. You just show people the atmosphere of BioShock, and they're automatically intrigued. Whether they play it or not. Just show them the trailer. They will be intrigued. It doesn't matter if they play it or not. It's always like, whoa, this looks creepy, or this looks interesting, or listen to the music, it doesn't fit. Like, you always get some kind of reaction. Barry Wilson says a lack of imagination, creativity, socially acceptable humor. That's another thing. Socially acceptable anything. Whatever is considered taboo may not be accepted very well and may actually have a more adverse effect on the game's reception. That's exactly what I was talking about when it comes to like scapegoating and all that. And then another one is current political issues. I have seen it affect the society and its approach to spending leisure time. Yeah, when it comes to like actual, like, take BioShock Infinite for example. That was an amazing game, but I saw a lot of reviewers talking about how it tapped into very personal themes, like very personal and intense themes, like racism and religion and political types of themes. And people, as soon as they see that, a lot of people react, sometimes negatively, usually negatively, where they're like, a lot of people sometimes feel attacked if you try to even delve into the realm of personal beliefs, like religion and all that. I think all gaming companies should take that leap, because a lot of those games usually turn out to be very good, because they're about these mature themes, and sometimes they say a lot about our lives and our actual society. For example, Deus Ex, Human Revolution. That game tapped into a lot of social issues. Even though it's like a different world, it's very applicable. It's kind of like the moral of the story type of thing. And that's what I love about games. So I think it's a risk, but I think it's something that they should not stop doing. They should always approach these types of themes carefully, but they shouldn't just take them out completely from their games, because it's a risk. Because usually you get amazing games. But I think it's just going in there with an open mind, a mature mind, which is one of the reasons why young teens or kids should not be playing these games, because it's hard for them to understand these kinds of things. Like, when I stopped and thought about what Deus Ex Human Revolution was really about, it blew me away. I was like, it says so much about your beliefs. It says so much about what you would do. And it makes you think about these things. And I think that's amazing. I mean, teachers do that in school. You do that in school. And a video game is doing that. That's why I think a lot of video games are misunderstood, because a lot of people think that they're child's play, that they're stupid stories, that they're just playing, that you're playing a game. Like, oh my God, you're wasting your time. They never stop to think that some of these games actually have intricate stories, and just like you enjoy that movie that you went to go see, I'll bet you anything that game is even more applicable to life than that movie that you just saw that you're raving about. So yeah, I think games deserve more credit. I think games deserve a lot of dedication when it comes to the developers. And I think gamers should not only enjoy playing games, but I think if you're in a position where you want to share your thoughts about it, I think there should be a huge amount of respect there and open-mindedness, because if it's lacking, you could be doing it a disservice when it doesn't deserve it. So So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. I'm if I didn't include your tweet or anything, I have them all over on my desktop, but I will most likely put them up at the end. I'll see about how the resolution is. If it's hard to read, then no. But I thank you so much for all of you that sent me those tweets and the Facebook messages. A lot of you did. I'm so happy about that. If you guys have anything to share, please feel free to add them in the comments below. I most likely will be doing this more often when I do the video game talks or the video games in society. I'll probably include your guys' ideas and all that as well. Let me know if you guys like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.